Hi, my name is Michelle. Every journey begins with a single step. Our journey was an epic 303-day adventure that I never saw coming. What began as an ordinary day turned into an extraordinary, life-changing experience for my husband and I and our 4 daughters. We became prisoners of hope and experienced compassion beyond our wildest dreams. One would think compassion alludes to sympathy and kindness, but there's something deeper, something even more profoundly powerful in its meaning. To understand the true breadth and significance of compassion, we need to look at the origin of this word. In Latin, compassion means to suffer with. Compassion means someone else's heartbreak becomes your heartbreak. Another suffering becomes your suffering. I'm reminded what Matthew records in his Gospel, chapter 14. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion towards them, and he healed their sick. My family story is just that. Echoing these actions of Jesus, we witnessed and saw our invisible God becoming visible through the many random, unforeseen acts of compassion by complete strangers, family, and friends, which helped carry us through our journey, a heart transplant, a second chance at life. These acts of true compassion have changed the way we now live. It was a regular Monday morning back in May 2016, and my husband Peter and I woke up at our usual 6 a.m. alarm to get ready for what we thought was going to be a normal day at work. An hour later, we woke up our daughters to get them ready to go to school. Little did I realize that later that afternoon, when I got that call from my husband, who was in casualty at the Grimsted hospital because he was having trouble breathing, that our world would turn upside down in a blink of an eye. The doctors who were managing Peter quickly realized that his heart was in complete failure. They made the necessary urgent arrangements for him to be flown to the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne, which is over 300 kilometres from our home. Cardiologists were on standby to meet Peter because his condition was quite critical and he was unstable. I remember unconsciously speaking out loud just as I was saying goodbye to him that all things will work out for good, not realizing that this powerful promise from Scripture would be one of my anchors of God's faithful assurance to help carry me through. We had no idea just how sick my Peter really was. He had reached end-stage heart failure and things were looking very, very grim. He had to undergo a life-saving surgery to implant a battery-operated mechanical pump, which then helps the left ventricle, the main pumping chamber of the heart, pump blood to the rest of the body. This life-saving therapy was to become the bridge to heart transplant. Peter was in hospital for over 12 weeks for just this procedure. As you can imagine, it had a huge impact on our family. I didn't hesitate, no matter what. We are family, and families stick together. I had no idea how this was going to work. How was I going to temporarily relocate my daughters to Melbourne and support my family financially, emotionally, and spiritually in a city where I knew absolutely no one, while the veil separating life from death was my husband's reality? Only God knew. He wasn't surprised. He is all-knowing and omnipresent. He knows the beginning from the end, and I knew in my heart of hearts that we would get through. I just didn't know how. I literally stepped out in blind faith and complete trust, doing it very scared and very afraid. Within 4 weeks, the girls and I walked away from our home in Bensdale with a suitcase full of clothes for each of us, not knowing what lay ahead. Believing that miracles do happen and God would drown all my fears in his perfect love. To be honest, there were times where I even questioned my own faith. God, where are you in all of this? It was at those lowest, darkest times I chose to trust and believe, leaning and yielding into God and becoming a prisoner of hope, and holding on to that promise in Jeremiah. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. God's provision in our hour of need was beyond comprehension. Peter and I lost our jobs. We had no income. We had no savings. And we still had a mortgage to pay back home and daughters to feed and educate. The provision from God was totally supernatural. I reached out to my parish priest, who helped me contact with another Catholic church in Melbourne, which was located close to the hospital. From there, our daughters were enrolled with ease into the Catholic primary school, Catholic high school, so they could continue their education. A furnished 2-bedroom unit, which was a 2-minute walk from the hospital, became available. Our local home community raised money to help pay the bond and 2 months' rent in advance for us. And many, many, many other random acts of kindness and compassion from people came in all sorts of ways. These actions were true hallmarks of our loving Jesus. A kind stranger from the Melbourne parish would give me a week's rent. Education in Melbourne was provided for the girls. The teachers and students were inclusive and made our daughters feel like they belonged. Parents from the Melbourne school rallied around and cooked meals for my family. Doctors and nurses from the Alfred Hospital were so supportive. The local cafe would bless me with a morning coffee and many meals for the girls and I. People were praying for healing, and I could feel the grace of God flood over us. Our invisible God became very visible through the major act of compassion we could ever have experienced. The gift of a second chance at life. It takes a special kind of family to make such a sacrifice in their time of grief to carry out an act of love towards someone in need. Our family is eternally grateful to our donor family that has made the decision which has transformed our lives. Their choice to donate their son's heart was such a selfless act. Their actions speak loudly of a very compassionate, generous, caring and loving people. The skills and talents of the surgeons' minds and hands, as well as the support from other medical professionals, enabled the awe-inspiring, life-changing operation to take place. Our God is sovereign. Miracles do happen, and I've seen silent prayers answered. Broken hearts become brand new. That's what faith, hope, and love can do.